Do you have any albums that were never released from after you quit the band? If so, would you ever think about making it available to fans, possibly through the internet? No, the Smile from the Streets You Hold is the album, that had some recordings from that period of time, and there weren't any recordings from after I quit the band, aside from those that appear on Smile from the Streets You Hold. And that album only has like 4 or 5 songs that were recorded at that time. I find that I find that every time I listen to your music, I feel or experience something new. If you had to choose one band or musician that has had a similar effect upon your life, who would it be? I guess the people that stick out in my mind are Mark Bolan from T-Rex and Lou Reed and David Bowie. Those people and Iggy Pop as well. Those people seem to, and the best of the music that they've made has stuck with me since I was a kid, and I still am constantly getting new things out of it. As I suppose I do with anybody I like, but those 3 people really stick out. And I guess other than that, I just go through phases where this person or that person really has a big effect on who I am. Right now, as I've said, Peter Hamill from Joy Division and John Cale. What did I say? Peter Hamill from Joy Division. Peter Hamill from Vandergraft Generator, and Nico and John Cale. They seem to be my favorite people at the moment. Oh, and Cat Stevens is my favorite at the moment as well. Was wondering what the chances of the side project you, Flea, and Omar did ever getting released. We haven't done it yet, but it will definitely get released once it gets done. But at the moment, we've just had conflicting schedules and things. But I've recorded a great deal of music with Omar on his solo record that's going to be a soundtrack to a film that he made starring Jeremy Ward. And I'm really proud of that music. We've done some really mind-blowing music for that, as well as made some good recordings on this 8-track at his house that are also really good. But basically him and me and Flea just wrote 3 songs together while we were touring together, and we're going to record them hopefully sometime in April or May, probably May. This question was basically, do you plan on releasing an album with all the new material you were coming up with at the performance shows? No, we have no plans of making of those things yet, except for shows 3 and 4, which we did make a record of. But we definitely would like to do an album of experimental stuff, but we've just been making other music. Since you recorded roughly 30 songs for By the Way, any chance you and the guys have ever contemplated releasing a double CD ever in the future? Well, we did contemplate making By the Way a double CD, which I actually think would have been a really good idea, but it was decided that we would just make a really long single CD. To me, some of the best songs for By the Way were released only as B-sides, which only came out overseas. But eventually I hope that to put all these B-sides onto one record, and that'll definitely be done one of these days. This question is, what is your advice for someone who is starting out as a guitarist, and how do you suggest they play, and what is the most crucial aspect of playing or developing? Well, for me, what I notice is just the most important thing is that a person really loves music. There's lots of ways of going about playing guitar. A person can learn. I strongly recommend learning songs from records, and I for me that's how I began, was by learning as much music as I could off of records, and eventually developing a sort of a vocabulary based on the words that I had learned, the musical words that I had learned through learning things on my guitar off of records. It was slow getting into it, but I suppose I started out with things that were more simple, like punk rock and new wave, and I eventually, was moving on to the guitarists of the '60s and progressive rock and art rock and things like that, and to the point now where pretty much anything that I want to know how to play, I can learn how to play it, and it's what keeps me going still. And it's big source of where ideas come from for me. I also think that while a person can definitely go their whole lives without learning theory and things like that, I think that that it can be a mind opener, and I think it only closes somebody's mind if they're that type of person. I think if you use theoretical information the same way that jazz musicians like Charles Mingus or John Coltrane or people like that use it, a lot of the time you learn rules, so you break them with finesse. I'd rather break rules, because I have some sort of an interesting way of breaking the rules, rather than break them because I don't know what I'm doing. For me, I like to see music in terms of color, and to me, understanding theory is just giving names to those colors, and once you've got a grasp on it, you can see all the different ways that you can bend those rules. And so I think it's a big help, and I'm glad that I learned those things when I was a teenager. But it's important to never get caught up in the physical aspects of being a guitarist, because while it's important to get your physical technique together, it's important to understand that this has nothing to do with music, and that music is only the sound of it, and music is not what it looks like when you play it on the guitar. And this is something that I couldn't get through my head when I was a teenager. It wasn't until I was about 20 that I had the realization completely, which people had said to me for years, but it had never really clicked in my head until I remember one day listening to Television's album Marquee Moon, and just realizing that it was the sound of what was coming out that mattered, and that the actual physical things that were taking place on the neck of the guitar had no importance whatsoever. And especially thinking about people like Keith Richards and how effective their playing is and how simple it is, this all clicked and has forever stayed firm in my brain, that it's the colors you create with your instrument that's important, and not physically what you're doing.